traveling to Europe. The New York Times acknowledged how uncommon international travel was, with a regular feature tracking the incoming and outgoing ships in New York Harbor and the names of prominent travelers. On April 23, 1938, it reported the Reverend John Lafarge as one of the passengers leaving that day on the Volendam from the 5th Street Pier, Hoboken, New Jersey, 11 a.m. Ships left New York comparatively empty and returned fully booked with passengers who managed to find passage to New York or any other destination away from Europe. Lafarge, however, was not a tourist, he was a journalist. His editor at the Jesuit magazine, America, had sent him to report on the 34th International Eucharistic Congress in Budapest, a sexennial meeting that would draw Catholic clergy and laypeople from 37 countries. At the same time, the trip would also give Lafarge the chance to visit London, Paris, Rome, and other capitals to examine church-state issues and report on the prospects for war. Lafarge celebrated Mass each day of the crossing for a congregation that included 9 nuns and anyone else of faith. The rest of the time, he read or took notes for a possible second edition of Interracial Justice, which would update issues concerning repression and discrimination against blacks in America. More and more, newspapers were reporting the rise of anti-Semitism in Germany and Hitler's persecution of Jews and increasingly of Catholics. Lafarge saw clear parallels between racial discrimination in the United States and what was happening in Europe. He had been working closely with the National Conference of Jews and Christians, and just before leaving New York, he had signed onto a joint document that focused on Hitler's recent occupation of Austria, which had been accompanied by new attacks on religious figures, and especially on Jews. The document said, "Although there are differences between Catholics, Protestants, and Jews, they stand together on common ground in defending human rights and liberties. We therefore join in expressing our profound abhorrence of the course of oppression and incitation, the denial of the rights of minorities, the restriction on freedom of conscience, and the arbitrary suppression of political and civic equality already instituted in Germany and now extended into Austria." The transatlantic shipping lines transmitted daily news summaries by wireless and posted the information on the ship's bulletin boards. News agencies reported that the Gestapo had begun expelling Jews and seizing their property in Austria, and frantic Jews lined up for visas at U.S., British, and Australian consulates, among others, where they were not always welcome. Lafarge took these days at sea as a respite and a time to read, gather notes, write, sleep, and eat. In his letters home to his family, he described the trip as uneventful. His few companions saw him as a serious, introspective, sardonic, middle-aged, bespectacled priest with twinkling brown eyes and a cowlick dangling over his forehead. He was a 58-year-old Jesuit and had been a priest since his ordination at age 25. Lafarge, the only member of his patrician family to join the priesthood, was proud to wear the collar. As a Jesuit and a priest, he had taken a vow of poverty. St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, described the Jesuit ideal as striving to be an ordinary person. Lafarge interpreted this as a directive to strip himself of pride and ostentation and to live a simple, humble life. Yet he was many other things, and often fretted about being prejudged as being a closed-minded cleric. He was a student of history and a lover of art and music, and he played the piano quite well. He was passionately interested in the politics of the day and was committed to education and social development. Lafarge was born in 1880 and was named after his father, whose father was a Frenchman from Brittany named Jean-Frédéric de Lafarge. He had fled captivity after serving under Napoleon. The senior John Lafarge was a prominent artist and stained glass designer. The story was told that Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi worked out his design for the Statue of Liberty while visiting the elder Lafarge's art studio in Newport, Rhode Island. Mrs. Lafarge, Margaret Mason Perry, was a descendant of Thomas Pence, an early settler at Plymouth, Massachusetts, She was also the granddaughter of Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry, and most notably, a great-great...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.